Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Dave Elliott.
And I'm Doug Walker. Welcome to Wlox News this week.
Coming up on the show this weekend, an ambitious plan to expand the Pass Christian Harbor. We'll also talk with the owner of the Mississippi Surge hockey team. But first, a local developer wants to build what he calls the Oasis at Deer Island. Larry Matranga unveiled plans for a project on Deer Island that includes condos, beach amenities like restaurant, pavilion, and much more. Matranga owns 8 acres of the island, and he's trying to get support for his plan. And Larry Matranga is right here right now to talk about this bold proposal. Thanks for joining us this weekend. We certainly appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
You know, this might not go over well with a lot of environmentalists watching, but I've always felt that Deer Island would make for some kind of perfect development, and your plan looks pretty solid. I don't know if people are aware there was an amusement park there in the early 20th century, some condos around 1980 or so. This has been a long time dream for you, hasn't it?
I've owned the property going on 10 years right now, and my initial interest in the property was, at the time, one of the fastest growing industries in the country was ecotourism. And the state had undergone a endeavor to acquire the island, and they have, for the most part, with the exception of a couple parcels out there. And I always felt that whenever they put something into conservation, it usually sits there, doesn't get used or anything else. And Deer Island particularly, because if you've been out there in the summer, on one of those 95-degree days, either the heat, the temperature, the critters will get to you. You don't spend much time there. And what I thought is to have, it started out as the Oasis, to have a place where people could seek shelter and go explore the rest of the island. To the extent that I approached the state about doing a boardwalk similar to that.
How long ago was that when you first approached the state with the boardwalk idea?
Probably 2 years ago.
Well, there have been a lot of proposals for Deer Island over the years, and as Dave mentioned, at one time there was actually an amusement park many years ago. But what makes your project different than the other ones? I remember at one point they were going to have a carousel out there and a skywalk out to Deer Island. None of that has ever materialized. Why is yours going to be different, you think?
Well, one of the things is that most of the other proposals for the development of the island included a bulkhead and filling in area to expand the actual land mass out there for their development. Whereas my program sits on the property that I own. There's no tidelands that are being affected, and there's no addition. We're using the land just.
So what do you say to the naysayers who are going to say, this is never going to happen, never going to happen?
I've heard that for 10 years, and it's difficult. There's no question about it. But the way I look at it is, I see families coming over, particularly with the restoration, the increase of the beaches. I see families coming over in the morning and having an extended stay out there. The pavilion is part of the development plan because it'll provide them with shelter. They'll be able to get food. They'll be able to get refreshments. The live entertainment, I think we have more festivals on the Gulf Coast than any place in the country on almost a monthly basis, and this is an extension of that type of environment.
And a lot of people who might be wondering what there'll be is there, I understand in the works, a 24-hour ferry that will run from the mainland out to Deer Island, and that's basically how that's going to work. But my question for you is, during this recession, with capital so hard to come by, we keep hearing about all of these ideas, and we've seen very little action. In other words, there's been a lot of talk and no action. Not to probe too deeply into your financial status, but I mean, are you prepared in terms of capital to pull this off?
I'll have a 40% equity interest in the development itself going in. I have a private venture capitalist who will receive a fee, receive interest carry on the development loan, and a small equity position in the development itself.
Everything that has ever been built on Deer Island has been destroyed.
That's correct.
By hurricanes.
That's correct.
Why take a chance on something that could be leveled, such as if another Katrina were to come along, this probably would not survive?
Well, first of all, I think that another Katrina is inevitable over a period of time. But I also look at the engineering advances that have been made. I mean, you look at Okaloosa Island, the developments out there. You look at Dauphin Island. You look at our own beachfront. There's not much difference between the condos on Highway 90 as opposed to Deer Island from a engineering and construction perspective.
So you would build strong enough to make them last?
Oh, absolutely. These will be built to Category 5 windstorm, and we're going above the base flood elevation. And they're on concrete steel pilings to where the water flow, like the surge from Katrina, will actually pass below.
Now we're talking about 8 3-story condominium buildings, 12 units each, I think roughly about 1,000 square feet per unit.
Correct.
So these wouldn't essentially be pre-construct sales that people would own and have as hotels. Would they be flat out kind of hotel rooms?
Well, that was my anticipated use. Over the last 6 months, since word of the development leaked, I've been approached by a number of people who would be interested in purchasing a unit. I would say that if I were to go that route, which hasn't been decided, there would be no more than 50% of the units that would go that way. And these are local individuals who are more interested in just having a weekend place out there than investors that are going to put them into a condo hotel. But I think it's very important to have the majority of the lodging out there available to the public. You know, to the extent where somebody from Wiggins can say, let's go down to the beach this weekend. We'll spend some time at the beach. We can rent a room down there. I see corporations wanting a little retreat.
Well, it's an amazing concept that you're bringing up, at least to me, because I've looked at Deer Island for these many years that I've been down here, and you can almost throw a rock to it, but very few people ever are able to get out to it. And you mentioned ecotourism. Explain that just a little bit more in depth. I mean, that has been a catch-all for a lot of developments here on the coast over the last 10 years. But what do you want people to do when they're out on that island?
Well, that's just it. I think this will provide some relief to being out on the island. There are many unusual things out on Deer Island that you won't see anywhere else. And the problem is when you start walking along the length of Deer Island, the mosquitoes, the horseflies, the heat will get to you. What I propose is that with the assistance, or let's say with the cooperation of the state, if they would build a boardwalk there, just like they did over at the National Seashore Park over in Ocean Springs, and then identify what is unusual, put signs out there or whatever, so that people can actually you know, have a taste of the environment. I expect that the majority of people that would be going into the island have never been exposed, never thought about the ecology before.
Before we run out of time, I think a couple of hurdles I see. First, I believe environmentalists might line up against this. You're going to have to deal with Albert Hosemann, the Secretary of State. Also, what about water and sewer? How do you get water and sewer out there?
The utilities can be available. When they built the original Margaritaville there, the shell that sits there at one time, they provided the utility vehicles to support that. There's a lift station out there. Mississippi Power has a power transformer out there.
So you just run the cables right under the water?
That's correct.
And run the sewer lines right under the water?
That's correct. Okay. And solid waste would be done through a compaction system and a, what do you call them? Where you take the organic matter.
Don't look that down.
We're not engineers, okay?
We are keeping an eye on this because this is, again, a very compelling and intriguing project. And Larry Matranga, thanks for joining us and telling us about it this weekend. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And when we